Rev up your engines! There's thousands of incomplete Chevy Colorados that are being shipped to the dealers. And you might wonder, why are they sending it to them when they're not complete? Because they don't have the chips. They're sending them without the chips, and of course then stuff is going to have to be put in. They're going to have to be programmed. Who's to say they're going to do the job correctly? They got enough problem, build them in one place. Now if they're stretching it here, we'll put a little over here. Kind of sounds like something old Elon would do with Tesla. Building cars in tents, well now they're going to have incomplete cars, and they're going to have guys putting them in, programming them, and of course the mechanics at the dealerships, hey, they're probably not even going to get paid for this. I had a friend years ago, the #1 automatic transmission specialist at a Chrysler dealer in Houston. And he ended up quitting because they kept paying him less and less. The straw that broke the camel's back was, he said, Scotty, finally they said, well, you don't get paid for diagnosing a car when the customer brings it in. And a mechanic friend of mine said to the owner, wait a second, what do you charge? He said, well, we're charging $140 to diagnose the car. He said, but you're not going to pay me? No, that's part of your job. You don't get paid for that. So you can imagine what's going to happen when you got those guys having to work for nothing. Who's to say any of that stuff is going to work out all that well? I guess they got to do something with these trucks and be piling up somewhere, so they'll send them to the dealer and pile them up there. Not such a great idea for mass production. I mean, the whole point of mass production is you produce it in one place. You don't start moving it all over the place. Put one part on here, one part on there. It's a recipe for disaster. B. King said, which is better, Lexus UX200H or Toyota RAV4 Prime Hybrid? How much money do you want to spend? They have very similar technology in both of them, you know, if you're talking about brand new ones. They're both, you know, well-made vehicles. They're both hybrids. Realize that you're going to get better gas mileage. You buy a brand new Toyota or Lexus, it's going to go a long time before it breaks. I believe the batteries have like, I don't know, 12, 14-year warranty or something on them. So you don't have to worry for quite some time. But see, I'm a cheapskate, so I buy them when they're 10 to 20 years old. And I'll never buy a used hybrid. There's too much chance of expensive stuff breaking. And I'm a mechanic. I can fix the stuff, but when I find that a real battery costs $10,000, no, I don't think I'm going to buy a used car that needs a $10,000 battery. No thanks. And I'm not going to go buy the remanufactured batteries because I know the history. That's only part of them are fixed. The other cells are all 10, 15 years old, and then it'll never have full power, and they maybe give you a year or two guarantee, where the original battery might have lasted 10, 15 years. Those cheap replacement rebuilt ones, they might last 2, 3 years. Then you got to buy another one. No. I would not buy a high-mileage used hybrid. But a brand new one, if you don't mind spending the money. They're not cheap. MC say, Scotty, what do you think of a 1998 Chrysler Sebring convertible V6? Probably one of the worst cars ever made. I've had customers with Houston. They just fell apart. Now, they're beautiful-looking cars, you know, and they're convertibles. But they're Chrysler made in 1998, and they made a lot of junk back in 1998. So, you know, not something that I'd bet the farm on. Now, if you're going to buy one and it's cheap and it's still runs, go ahead. Just realize that it's not an everyday driver and engines can fall apart on those things. Kevin Amon says, what's the smoothest engine you've ever driven? A BMW Inline 6? Yeah, they're smooth engines. There's no arguing that. They're very smooth engines, very well-built engines. But, you know, I've been in Jaguar V12s, and when they were actually running and not broken, they were very smooth too, you know? And of course, a rotary engine is extremely smooth because it doesn't go up and down. It just spins around. And those are smooth engines, too. They don't last that long either, but they're smooth when they're running. Ricardo Moya says, which brand is more reliable as used car, Infiniti or Acura? Acura by a country mile. They're much more reliable vehicles, infinitely more reliable. You'd want an Acura well before you'd want to get any Nissan-made car. Nissan owns Infinitis. They generally are endless money pits as they age the Infinitis. But the Acuras can be excellent cars. Now, they're both very high-tech cars. So you want a guy like me to check them out before you buy them used. Don't just gamble. But the Acuras are infinitely better vehicles. T sort of says, what's your opinion on 3-cylinder engines? They're making them better than they used to. The Geo Metros used to have the 3-cylinder engines that are made in Europe somewhere. They're small, they're cheaper to make, they get good gas mileage. Some of those Suzukis had 3-cylinder engines in them. But they don't hold up with a lot of heavy-duty wear And now they're making them and they're turbocharging them. They're getting 200 horsepower out of them. They're not going to last. They'll fall apart. Believe me. Ford's had some 3-cylinder engines. They already start falling apart. I would not buy a 3-cylinder turbocharged engine. Now, if I was a cheapskate and I wanted a small car and it had a normally aspirated, non-turbocharged 3-cylinder, and I didn't care how slow it was, it might last quite some time. But they're all turbocharging them, putting GDI injection, and they're not going to last that long. Minty Nugget says, Scotty, do you know how to take apart and work on computers, soldering and swapping computer parts? I do, but I really don't do it much anymore because, especially on cars, you can't get parts readily for them. And when a computer system starts breaking down in a car, a lot of times it feeds back and shorts out other parts, and there's no real way of testing them when you're done. Let's face it, if you got a laptop or even a desktop, when they break, try to fix them. Go to a guy who says he can fix them. Half the time, they're never fixed right. It's better just to replace the stuff. But with cars, it's so hard to get the parts for them anyways. And then if they have to be reprogrammed, you got to pay a mechanic like me, unless you're willing to buy a $1,500 scan tool and pay for the software online to reprogram them. It's really not worth the hassle for a normal person. Mauricio says, our 2016 F-150 V6 flex fuel is a good buy. Probably not. A lot of them have the GDI fuel injection systems. They have a tendency of wearing out. They got that V6 engine that the water pump runs off the timing chain, and if it breaks, it'll destroy the engine, and it costs a fortune to replace it because it's run by the timing chain, so I got to take the engine all apart to replace the water pump. You spend $1,000-something bucks having it changed. No, I would not buy one of those used. I would buy one with a V8 normal engine, hands down. They're excellent, but I would not buy the V6 engine ones. One, they're underpowered for what you got, and two, those EcoBoost things, they don't hold up over time. DH says, Scotty, do you think the new Toyota Tundra will be made in right-hand drive, seeing that it's the same platform as the new Land Cruiser? You know, if they want to sell it in the rest of the world, they'll probably do some research on it. You know, Toyota didn't make a V8 pickup truck until decades ago when they decided to make them in Indiana. They had a Toyota forklift factory. They made great forklift trucks, and they turned it into a factory to make pickup trucks. They really aren't that interested in big, giant pickup trucks. They make great ones, but they don't sell billions of them. They're not really in the business of even competing with Ford and Dodge Ram. You know, they're not. They make a great big pickup truck, but it's not a big deal to them. Now, if they want to ramp up production and sell them in Europe, sure, I'm sure they'd sell the heck out of them if the people in Europe want to buy a bigger pickup truck. But from my experience as European, they buy smaller things. So maybe it wouldn't be a wise decision for them to market it and go through the trouble of building them. Because, you know, in Europe, Japan, the delivery trucks are bigger delivery trucks, and people don't really want big pickups like they do here in the United States. Dominic Williams said, what are your thoughts on a 2021 Honda Pilot motor and transmission? Well, it's new, so I can't say much about it, but judging by the past, the Honda Pilot's motors and transmissions were excellent. I had a customer in Houston who was a plumber. He had two of them that he bought for his business. Each one had 180,000 miles on it. Still ran like a clock. He loved the things. They're well-built vehicles. Whether they'll be good or they'll be bad, you never know. But judging by the past, they're pretty good vehicles. Philip Macy says, hey, great to have back at a regular time. Is Tennessee better than Rhode Island? Well, overall, I'd say it is. Everything has its pluses and minuses. Now, I am more a guest in Rhode Island. I rented a place on the ocean. It was beautiful, right? You're on the Atlantic Ocean, and then we drive to Little Compton, which is right on the Atlantic Ocean, and we were on an inlet. This was where the waves crash in and rocks. It's beautiful. It's unbelievable, you know? But I wouldn't want to live there in the winter. It was windy enough and cold enough in the summer. Imagine what it'd be like in the winter. You'd be freezing to death. Like I told people, I looked at a 785 square foot cottage built in 1930 on the ocean there. They sold it for $1.3 million on a 50 by 100 foot lot. So they want extravagant money. So, you know, but I loved it there. Very friendly people. It's America. I met people from other countries that moved here. I met people that were born and bred in Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Maine, New Hampshire. No, I had a great time. And I'm going back in October and November again, people. So I'll be back there. I like meeting people and helping them out with their problems. I'm based here in Tennessee because I like the tax structure's better. It's wide open. Everybody's real friendly here. And the real estate taxes are tons less than they are on the East Coast. I met a lot of people around there that said, we're moving to Tennessee. We're moving to rural Ohio. We want to move somewhere where the taxes aren't as insane. I met a bunch of young people, married couples that were so sad because they couldn't buy a house. They were living in their parents' cellar, fixing it up, but they couldn't buy a house because the house prices are so high there. So I feel sorry for the people that are stuck there. It is beautiful. There's no arguing that. It's a great place to vacation. But after I searched around, I doubt it's going to be anytime soon I'm going to be buying any property there because it's too expensive. Jason Von Berman says, can I put aftermarket fuel injection on a 1973 Lincoln Mark IV? You certainly can, but here's what I advise you to do. You know, Holley is a carburetor company, right? Well, Holley has these cool conversion kits, and they're like, I don't know, $1,200-$1,300, and it bolts on where the carburetor went, and it's all set up that there's computer parts that you just set up to make the car run correctly. It's got its own oxygen sensors that you drill and bolt on the manifold. They're excellent system. Holley makes them, Holley. And you can convert it to fuel injection very easily. You, of course, have to put a different fuel pump on it. You can buy the fuel pumps with the kits, too, because fuel injection pressure is higher than a carbureted pressure. Fuel injection might be 45, 50 PSI. Carburetor runs on like 2 PSI. But yes, they're very good. Those new Holley conversion kits, they're complete assemblies, but they bolt right where your carburetor is. You don't even have to change your intake manifold. It's a very doable thing. They work quite well. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.